Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel So Little Time, and my name is Karen. So I hope you're all doing really well, and thank you very much for joining me today. Today I have a slightly different video for you. So I've been set a challenge by Felicity Fabrics, and this is also in collaboration with Gemma from the Daily Thread, and I'll put her Instagram handle across the bottom of the screen for you, and we'll also link it in the description box as well, so you can go and check out her profile on Instagram. Now, we are both bloggers for Felicity Fabrics, and Felicity Fabrics have given us a challenge to do together, and it is something that's going to be sort of suitable for a beginner, and it's a challenge whereby we are going to try and sew something in a short amount of time. So we've each chosen something different to sew. Gemma, I think, is sewing a pair of elasticated waist shorts, and I am going to be sewing the Tilly and the Buttons Coco top, which is one of my most favourite jersey patterns of all time. I have made numerous versions of this in both the top and the dress format, and I get so much wear out of them, and I have to say it's a really enjoyable sew. It's a really good one to start with if you are somebody who is new to sewing with jersey, and I thought this would be the perfect one for the challenge. So if you're not familiar with the pattern, it's by Tilly and the Buttons, and it is sort of a standard jersey garment whereby you have three pattern pieces, and can be sewn all on your sewing machine, or if you do have an overlocker, you can use that as well. But you do not need to finish the raw edges on jersey garments. So yeah, it just has a front and back bodice and a sleeve piece. It does have optional pockets as well, or you can do a funnel neck as per this version up here. But I'm just going to be doing the straight top version today without a pocket. So it's just got a standard neckline, and then it has side vents just at the bottom of the side seams, which you can have or cannot. I do quite like those, so I will be adding those in on my version. But what I thought I would do today is time myself just to see how long this is going to take me to sew up. I've been kindly gifted the fabric by Felicity Fabrics for this challenge, and I'll just show you a scrap of it here. It's this beautiful cotton jersey in a lilac and white stripe, and I really like that colourway. They do have this in a mint colourway as well, I believe, which will be up on their website. And do take advantage of my code Karen10 to get 10% off your order. Yeah, you just enter that at checkout. And I do love working with cotton jersey. It's one of my most favourite jersey fabrics to work with. I just find it's really stable and very easy to sew, and it washes and wears really, really well as well. And this is perfect fabric for the Coco in either the top or the dress format. I have also made that in French terry before, and a Ponte Roma, but I do prefer it just as like a cotton jersey. So I've already got the pattern pieces cut out in my size, because like I say, I've used this on numerous occasions. So I'm going to be sewing up the size 3 today. But I am going to be using a slightly smaller seam allowance than what this calls for. So the Tilly and the Buttons pattern calls for a 1.5 or 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And I'm going to be doing it at 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimetre, just purely because I just wanted a slightly more relaxed fit on me. And also my overlocker, the blades need changing, so it doesn't cut the fabric at the moment very well. So I just thought what I would do is sew the garment actually on my sewing machine, and then I will be finishing the raw edges on my overlocker. But I will do that the other way around, so I'm going to sort of finish the edges first before I sew it up. So that will add a little bit of time onto me making this garment, but it just will show you really how quick of a make this can be if you sew it purely on your overlocker, you know, because you don't need to use the sewing machine at all. Unless you just want to use it for top stitching, really. But yes, so I'm going to see how long this takes me to sew then. So I've got my sewing machine all set up. I've got white thread in the bobbin and on the top, and I've set my machine up to a zigzag stitch, and I've set the width as 1.5 and the length as 2. And I will change that when I come to do some top stitching. I may do a zigzag for top stitching, or I may use my twin needle. I'm just going to see how I feel when I get to that stage. And then my overlocker is all set up with white thread as well, and that is ready to go. So fingers crossed I won't have any problems with the machines, and also I hope that I'm not going to be getting it disturbed by the phone or the door, so I can actually time myself adequately just to see how long this is going to take me. So if you're somebody who is new to sewing with knits, then I would say don't be scared at all. It is actually a really easy process. You will be very surprised. As long as your machine is set up adequately and you've got the right needle in, then you will be good to go. The needle that I'm using today is a stretch needle and it is a size 75/11. So this is what the packet looks like. You can also use a ballpoint needle or a jersey needle, but I just tend to use stretch. That just seems to suit my machine really well, and I don't ever get any skipped stitches. So when I first actually started sewing with knits, I did have the Tealing the Buttons online course for sewing with jersey, and I made the Tealing the Buttons Agnes top as my first jersey garment, and that is actually a more difficult sew than the Coco because you've got a neckband to insert, and I just found that really straightforward, and the course was really good as well. I didn't technically need it really because when I came to sew it I found it really easy, but it was just good to have that little bit of hand holding at the very beginning, but I never used it after that. I just did it that one time and then I was off. So yeah, this is a really nice pattern to sew if you are a beginner, so I would highly recommend this one as a first jersey project. So right, without further ado then, we shall get started with the challenge and we will see how long it takes me. I have also got my iron and ironing board set up over the way there, so I will be sort of ironing as I go along, so I will be hopping on and off the screen. I will probably speed up a lot of this video just because I'm not going to be doing it as a tutorial style as such. I do have another one of those planned, which will be hopefully next on the agenda because I've got that all cut out ready to go. But what I will say is that I do actually have the pattern pieces already cut out in my fabric, so it is just the sewing that I am going to be doing today, but I did time myself yesterday as to how long it took me to cut out the garment. Now it is a stripy fabric, so it did take me slightly longer than it would have me for cutting out on a plain fabric or a pattern that has no direction, so it took me about 15 minutes for me to pin the pattern pieces onto this fabric and to get it cut out, and that was ensuring that I was obviously following the grain line and also making sure that the stripes were all laid out adequately. So I will insert a photo just here of how I laid my pattern pieces on. So I folded the sides of the fabric in and left a section in the middle clear, and I just used 1 meter of fabric, so that is more than enough for the size 3 at least, and this is the excess that I have got left. So you can see that I have managed to get the pattern out of 1 meter of fabric. I will say this is quite a wide fabric though, so if you have a narrow fabric you might find that that doesn't work for you. You might need 1.5 to 2 meters depending on the size that you are making and the width of the fabric. But yes, I had to obviously line up the stripes, so it did take me a little bit longer, so it perhaps would have taken me about 10 minutes to cut it out usually. And I'm not somebody who tries to line up the stripes on the sort of seam line around the arm here. I do try to line up the stripes down the side seams and also down the seam of the sleeve. So the way I do that is when I lay my pattern pieces on, I make sure that I line it up with a stripe at the top, so either underneath, you know, the coloured stripe or the white stripe, and I do that also for just at the corners here to make sure that they're exactly the same on both sides, so it's just sort of placed where it should be. And then for the excuse me, I've got a croaky throat, for the top, when I lay it down sort of the pattern, you know, on the fold, I just make sure that I line up the pattern piece again underneath a coloured or a white stripe and make sure that the underarms are also the same, and then making sure that all the sort of stripes are lined up as I folded the fabric over. Now this is quite a narrow stripe, so it did take me a little bit longer, like I say, but if it was a wider stripe you wouldn't have as many stripes to sort of line up. But yeah, so that's how I do it, and I don't tend to line up this section here. I'm not that bothered about that. I just quite like the, you know, down the sides and under the arms to be lined up. So the first thing then that we're going to do, I'm going to get my phone over here and we're going to do a time check to see how long this is going to take me to do. So I'm just going to move my sewing machine out of the way. And the first bit of sewing that we're going to do, I'm not going to follow the instructions because I already know how to sew this. And the first step is to, you need to baste across the top of the neckline to stay stitch basically. across the top of the neckline on the front and back. Now I'm not going to do that purely because I have got a cheats way of doing it. I have some of this little iron-on tape, and I'm going to be ironing that around the neckline here on the front and the back to stop it stretching out, and I can feel that I have done that on this one as well. So this particular one that I'm wearing, I didn't use my overlocker at all for it, so it does have raw edges on the inside, but like I say, you don't need to use your overlocker if you don't want to. So yeah, that is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to cut some lengths of this to do the neckline, and then everything else I will be doing on the sewing machine and overlocker. Right, so I just need to figure out which is my front and back, so bear with me a second. The back obviously has a higher neckline, right, so that's the back. Okay, so I think we shall do a time check then, and we will see how long this takes me. So the time is 9:35, if you can see that. So that's the time that we're starting at. So let's see how long this takes me to do. So let's go. Right, so I've just popped those on there, and the next thing I'm going to do is actually use my overlocker, and I am going to overlock down the sides of the sleeves down here, and I'll also do it across the bottom as well. So I'll do that on both sleeves, and then I'm also going to overlock down the sides of the top, across the bottom, and then I think I may do that across the top neckline as well, because when I come to fold that over, I do like a finished edge, but like I say, you don't need to do that, so I will be doing that on the front and back. So I'm just going to go straight ahead and do this on the sleeves first. I've got my machine set up to all the 4s across the top, so that's just standard on my overlocker. So here we go. Right, I will also be overlocking across the top of my sleeves as well, because I am just going to literally be sewing this up on the sewing machine. So that's the side seams and the bottom overlocked. I'm now going to do the neckline, and I know I've put that tape on there, but that will give it some stability to stop it stretching out. But I just like to finish this edge because it just then is enabling me to fold it over and top stitch it into place. What I'm actually going to do as well, actually on second thoughts, is to go around the armholes as well, and also across the top of the shoulder seams, just because then I can sew everything just on my sewing machine, and all the raw edges will then already be finished. So I'm just going to do the shoulders first. So I'll also finish across the top of the sleeves, you know, the sleeve head at the top, and I would just take it steady as I go around the curves, not to distort the fabric. Right, so that's everything overlocked. So all of the raw edges are overlocked. So I am just going to be sewing this all up on the sewing machine now as well. So the first thing to do is to sew the shoulder seams together. So I'm going to get my front and back pieces. Let's move the sleeves out of the way for now. And I will be sewing those. So I need to just check which is the front and the back of the fabric, because it's quite similar. And so I'm just going to pin the shoulder seams together, and then again check the back. That's it. Right, so pin those together at the shoulder seams, and like I said, I'm going to be using 3/8 of an inch down the side seams and also the underarm seams, but I will be using 5/8 of an inch for the shoulder seams, and then I will hem it as I see fit when I come to finish it. and I will be pressing all of my seams open. So because I'm actually doing the vent option, it's easier, I find, to actually overlock the sides first, because then you have the raw edges finished if you want to for when you come to do the vents, so that they're just not raw. But like I say, it doesn't matter if they're raw, it's just my personal preference. So I'm just going to press those shoulder seams open. So the next stage for me is to fold the neckline in. So I've just pressed those shoulder seams open, and I'm literally now going to open up the whole of the top. So you've got the neckline facing you like a hole, like this. And then I'm going to be folding that in, probably about, I don't know, maybe 1 centimetre. And I'll be following a stripe along the top there, as my first sort of bit, and I'm going to pin that into place, and then I'm going to be top stitching that down. So that's the next thing, is the neckline. So I'm just going to pin that round. It should just naturally fall as you go. Right, so the neckline is all pinned, ready for me to sew. So what I'm actually going to do is I am just going to use a zigzag stitch around there. So for top stitching, I change my width to 2.5, and I also change the length to 2.5 as well. And then I shall take the arm off my sewing machine, so I'm able to anchor the neckline underneath. And for this, I will just top stitch around. You can use your twin needle for this as well. You will notice that I've got my walking foot on. I just have that on as standard all the time. And I'm just going to follow the edge of my sort of foot against the edge of the neckline as a guide as to where I want the stitching to fall. And that should hopefully fall in the right place, I hope. Right, so that's the neckline sewn. It looks a bit wibbly wobbly, but I'm just going to give that a little bit of a press. Right, so the neckline has now been pressed, so that's looking a lot better. Right, so the next thing is to insert the sleeves then. So I'm just going to lay the top out with the right side facing up. And then you will see that there are some small, very small notches to differentiate the front to the back. So this is the front, so I've got a single notch on that one there. And even though I've overlocked it, I can still see those, so there's 2 on that one. So I'm going to be lining up my sleeve head with that. So I'm just going to find the correct sleeve. So let's do a time check as well. So we are now on 10 o'clock. Or just gone, 10:01, I think it says on there. Oh, 10:02 now, as you can see. So we are just 25 minutes in, and we're on a good time schedule, I think. So let's see which way around this goes. So we need 1. So that's the single notch, that's the double notch. Right, so lining that up. So the shoulder seam with the single notch at the top of the sleeve head, I will pin that into place. And then I will line up the single notch on the front armhole. And then I'm going to line up the edge of the armhole underneath, or the underarm seam there. And then you'll see that you just need to sort of stretch it a little bit to fit. Just manipulate it into place. So with this one, I am going to be using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance across the shoulder seams, because I find that it fits me fine for that area. I just want a more relaxed style for the actual body this time. And like I say, my overlocker is not cutting the fabric at the moment, so I have the blades, I just need to change them. I've just been really lazy recently and haven't changed them. So now I just need to line up the other side, so doing the same, just lining up the underarm seam. And then the double notch for the back of the sleeve. Right, so that's one armhole sewn in. So I will be pressing those seams open, but I'm just going to insert the second sleeve first. So let's just do that. Right, so that's the sleeves sewn in. So I'm just going to press those seams open. Obviously, if you were to just use your overlocker, you wouldn't have any of this flappy seam allowance on there. But like I say, mine is not cutting at the moment. So just purely for speed, I'm doing it on the sewing machine, and it will be fine when I'm wearing it. I've done it before, it will be fine. So I'm just going to sew them, press them open like that. Right, so this is now starting to resemble a top. So I'm just going to literally now sew down the side seams and down the under the arm seams for the sleeves as well. So I'm going to be turning the garment so it is right sides together. This is the more time consuming bit if you want to be lining up your stripes. Obviously this is a very narrow stripe, so it's going to take me a little while just to line them all up. But I'm only going to be sewing part way down the side seams where the vents will be. So I've marked on my fabric with a friction pen just where I need to stop sewing, because this is going to be the open section at the bottom, which we will fold over and top stitch into place. So I'm just going to fold my fabric right sides together and start lining up as many stripes as possible to keep them accurate. So fingers crossed my cutting out has been okay. So I'm just going to open those side seams that I pressed open. So I'm going to angle you down so you can see what I'm doing a little bit more. So I'm just going to first of all line up the underarm seam first. So I'm just going to find that and then pin that into place, making sure that those seam allowances are open. Obviously, depending on how you've done it, you might not need to do that. Because you can also cut down your seam allowances, like, you know, and overlock them afterwards. Right, so I'm going to start lining up as many stripes as possible. And this is where, if you do have a walking foot, that will come into play as well. It will ensure that your stripes stay lined up as evenly as possible after pinning, because it distributes the fabric through at an even rate on your sewing machine compared to a standard presser foot. So I'm just sort of pinning every now and again because I can see that the stripes are lining up pretty well, especially for this underarm seam. So I was hoping we would get this done in an hour. I'm not really sure. Maybe if I'd just done a plain fabric, it perhaps would have been a little bit quicker, and also if my blades had been sharp on my overlocker as well. But hey ho, you just go with what you've got for the time being. So there is a little notch on this arm as well, so I've just lined that up. I'm not going to put too many pins all the way down. If I had a thicker stripe, I'd probably be pinning every other stripe, but for this bit here, I'm just sort of pinning every, I don't know, maybe fifth stripe, because I think once I put it through the machine, I can kind of manipulate it as I go. Oh, is that lining up at the bottom? I've got this gone a bit off pieced at the bottom of that sleeve, but I will perhaps have to cut a little bit of that off. We shall see. Okay, so that's the underarm seam on one side. So now I'm just going to do the body on the other. So like I say, I'm lining up the two little marks that I made to show where I need to stop sewing. So it's that stripe there basically. So what I'm going to do is put a double pin in that section, so I know that's where I need to stop sewing, because I've put the mark on the right side of the fabric. Yeah, because I tend to do that. I tend to pin my fabric right sides showing. So I don't know why, I just find that easier. Yeah, these stripes are lining up pretty nicely. I mean, if they're out slightly, I don't think it really matters too much as they're quite narrow. But it would definitely be more noticeable on a wider stripe. So I would advise pinning every other stripe if you are doing a wide stripe top. I did a dress version once in all the stripes, and that took me forever to line up all the stripes. Okay, so that side's pinned, and I've double pinned that section there, so I'm just going to turn it round and pin the other side. Again, open up those seam allowances and find the underarm seam first. And pin that. So this is where I'm going to be sewing 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, because I just want a slightly looser fit on this top. And also it means then as well that the seam allowance isn't too flappy down the sides and under the, you know, so it is a little bit better. Right, so I'm all pinned. So I'm going to start the sewing process now. So let's just bring my machine forward. And I think I'm going to start from the bottom of the sleeve first, because I'm obviously going to stop at where the vent needs to be. So I'm just going to do that now. Ooh, I have Right, so that's all the side seams sewn, and then I'm just going to press those seams open, and then what that will do as well is at the bottom where you've got this vent, you'll be obviously pressing the seams open, and that will create the seam allowance for the vent at the bottom there, and then you'll just be top stitching around that. So I'm going to go and press those seams open. Right, so I've pressed those open, so you can see I've created the vent there, and then what we're going to do is turn the top right side out, and then I'm going to top stitch around those vents. So as you can see, it does create a really nice sort of crisp vent there. So I'm literally going to use a straight stitch just to come up the vent there and cross over at the top and back down again. So I'm going to just have a standard straight stitch on that, because that doesn't need to stretch at all. It's literally just for decorative purposes and to make sure that it stays in place. So I'm just going to use again the sort of edge of my presser foot to guide where I need to go for that. So I've got it on that, and here we go. So there you'll see that the vent is then stitched into place. So I'm going to do that on the other side, and then all we've got left to do is hem the sleeves and hem the bottom of the garment. Let's do a quick time check. So we're on 10:27, so still under the hour at the minute that I was hoping for, but we shall see how we go. Right, so it's just now the hemming of the sleeves and also the bottom of the garment to do. So to do that, I literally just lay out the actual garment in front of me, fold it up along a stripe of my choice. I probably would do just maybe 1 or 2 stripes and pin that into place like that. And then I will top stitch that with a 2.5 by 2.5 width and length of my zigzag. And then I will do the same for the hems of the sleeves as well. Just line it up around a stripe. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I don't think we're going to quite make the hour that I was hoping for, but we are near as there, I would say. So I'm not going to be too disappointed, really. Alright, so that's the bottom pinned. I'm just going to pin the sleeves now. So again, I'm just going to turn them under a couple of stripes. Right, so I'm setting my machine to a 2.5 by 2.5 zigzag. This is where you can use your twin needle if you would like, but I am just going to zigzag mine for speed. And I do actually put my cuffs over the arm of this because I do find that there is enough room to do that without it stretching. So I'm just going to do that at 5/8 of an inch away from the edge of the fabric, and I think that will be about right. Right, so that's it done. Let's do a time check. So the time is 10:36. Can you see that? Hold on, let me open my phone and you can see the time. Yeah, so 10:36. So basically that was within the hour that I have finished that. So I'm really, really pleased. Right, so that's the top finish then. I absolutely love it. I'm going to go and try it on for you so you can see what it looks like, and I'll probably see if I can pair it up with my, I don't know, would it go okay under these dungarees? I don't know, I'll probably put it on my lilac dungarees because I'm really into lilac at the minute, and see what that looks like. Yeah, but I'm really pleased with that. I love a cocoa top. It's really going to be one that's going to get lots of wear as per my others. So you can see that it is a really, really quick make. Like I say, you could just do that completely on your sewing machine without finishing any of the edges. You could also just do it purely on your overlocker, apart from the top stitching. Yeah, so a really, really quick make. And as you saw, I did a combination of overlocker and sewing machine purely because my blades are blunt and I had to, you know, have the seams pressed open. So anyway, I'm fine with that. It looks clean and tidy on the inside. I absolutely love this fabric. It was a dream to work with. So I'm just going to give it a quick press and then I shall pop it on for you. So I'll be back in a second. Right, so I've got it on and I've got it on with my lilac dungarees. I'm really, really pleased with it. I love it. I love a cocoa. It never lets me down. I've got the 3/4 length sleeve version and I always go for that option. You can have it with cuffs if you want, but I just opt to, you know, turn it under and top stitch, and it fits really, really nicely. I've got the neckline's nice and flat, so that won't stretch out at all because it's got that stay tape in it. The shoulders are on my shoulders. The shoulder seams are on my shoulders, and yeah, it pairs really nice with these dungarees. So really, really pleased that I've got something to wear with these dungarees. And as you can see, I have taken the rainbow patch off the front of the bib pocket, and if I pan you down, you'll see that I have moved the back pockets in more, so they are now where they are supposed to be, so they're not as close to the side seam, so there's a bigger gap there, which looks much, much better, and I'm much happier with them now, and they will get a lot more wear, and I'll especially be wearing it with this top. I mean, with my lilac gilet on top, I'm going to look like basically a lilac crayon. I think that's a thing, isn't it, being all dressed in one colour? But yeah, I'm really pleased with the cocoa. So I'm just going to take my dungarees down so you can see the length of the top, because it comes to about mid hip, and then you've got those side vents as well, so it's just a really nice length, because you can tuck it into jeans and you can wear it over the top as well, which I tend to do so. So I'll just take these down so you can see. Right, so I've got it untucked. It is over my dungarees, so it does look a bit weird with that seam there, but as you can see, there's loads of room in there, really, really nice and comfy. You've got the side vents here, so they're a really nice feature. I really do like that. Yeah, so it's a really nice length. I really like this length on me. I find it's quite a flattering length, and I like the side vents. I like the fact it's got loads of room in it. It's come up a bit snugger than I thought it was going to, actually, because my other one, which was done with the 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, fits exactly the same. So it must be the fabric. This must have maybe it's a tighter weave, I don't know, but I'm more than happy with the fit, because there's more than enough room in there, which is fine to wear over jeans, because my jeans aren't as baggy as these, you know. But yeah, so I'm really, really liking the colour. Like I say, there is a mint colourway as well, so it's just a really nice stripy top. So I hope you have enjoyed this style of video. It was just a little bit of fun, something a little bit different. So I just want to say a huge thank you to both Caroline and Fliss for setting the challenge for me and Gemma. And I'm really interested to see how she has gotten on with her makes. So I will link the blog post down below for you to check out, so you can have a read of both of our makes. And yeah, I hope to do maybe something similar like this in the future, because it was quite nice to have a sort of time limit set on it. I just really was interested to see how long it was going to take me to sew up this top. You know, and jersey makes are a quick make, because like I say, you don't have to finish the seams or the raw edges, so yeah, you could just sew it, you know, and not do any of that finishing. So that would knock off a little bit of time. So if you just whiz this up on the overlocker, you could probably do it in 45 minutes, maybe even half an hour if you're a really speedy sewer and don't pin as much as I do, because I do like to pin quite a bit. And like I say, if you don't use a stripy fabric and it's just a non-directional print or a plain fabric, you would have obviously be able to get this made up in no time at all. So I highly recommend this pattern. If you haven't tried it out already, go for it. You don't know what you're missing out on. I love it. It just goes with so many things under my pinafore dresses, my dungarees. I wear it as it is on its own. You know, it's just a really versatile top. So thank you very much for taking the time for watching my video today. Please do give my video a like if you have enjoyed it, and please do consider subscribing if you've not already done so, not forgetting to click that bell, and I shall see you all again soon. Take care. Bye.